Let's pray then. Precious Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We appreciate the fact that we can come and study your word. And the ones that are on that list, Lord, are heavy on our hearts. Pray that you be with the Boring family. They've sent Robert home with hospice, with nothing else they can do. Pray that you watch over Len as he fights shingles and the pain that's involved in that you give him an answer, regardless of where he asks, so that the relief can come from you. And that you be with the ones that are traveling. Just watch over them. Keep tabs on them. Allow them to get home safely. And for the ones, Lord, that we know that are just on the list continually, that you continue to work in those lives. Allow us to minister wherever we can. And give us the opportunity to talk and speak and give them a good word. And in doing so, we just bring you into their lives, not us. Thank you for the ones across the street, for the gym today. Watch over that so that the transition is smooth and that your word isn't interrupted. People can come to a saving knowledge of you. And as we study today, Lord, I pray that you just bind Satan from this room. No confusion. Allow us to understand exactly what we need to understand. Any questions that arise, let them be asked because you put them in their heads. And I pray that the answers would be adequate through the Holy Spirit, and that what we're doing is something that is beneficial for us all, just to have information to do battle against the one that doesn't care for us at all. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen. Okay. I can see it on spot. Where did we get to before? Number six. Number six. L.S. Schaefer. Oh, this is just down to ungodliness thing, okay? Also, I found this. This came across my phone from Ed James this week. It was kind of interesting. I was talking to a couple that I know, and they were belly aching about what they were going through all the time and why it was happening all the time and all of this. And this came through, and I showed it to both of them, and they immediately shut their mouths. And it is kind of, it's not anything heavy-duty spiritual or any of that. I asked God, why are you taking me through troubled waters? He replied, because your enemies can't swim. Very simple, but exceedingly true. It's not going to go somewhere where you're hanging out with Jesus Christ. So, and troubled waters is one of his access points, so to speak. And it was just kind of strange. And I mean, it couldn't have come through my phone 10 minutes before she was telling me all their woes. And their woes have to do with just putting up with a pain in the neck family member that is going to be a short window and then it'll all be over. So, at any rate, the Lord has a good way of kicking stuff in your way when it's supposed to be stuck. So, at any rate, what we're doing with all of this is, biggest wrestling match was trespass and all that. Now we're down to the nasty stuff. Okay? Isn't that the word they used in the news about 2 weeks ago? Somebody was nasty to the president was nasty to whatever.
That was a while back.
I believe.
Okay. Old stuff.
Fake
At any rate, say the word, Scott. Acebo?
Acevedo.
Oh, that, I wasn't anywhere in the neighborhood with that one. Okay. Acevedo. Now, anybody know situations like that? Because what's it tell you about it? Meaning to reference into or worship. How many of you know what irreverence is? As far as God's terminology. What is irreverence?
Not doing what Jesus would do.
Okay, all right. Or not.
Scorning that which is made holy.
Okay, scorning it, but I think more, it may even be closer to the no respect for it.
Yes, right.
Not acknowledging what you're stepping into.
Yeah, that'd be a one level before what I was saying.
Yes.
Whereas you just don't care.
You don't care. This is
Whereas
just
on
not
life,
having
yeah.
the ability. Did you find an answer for it?
I can't spell.
Okay. No, don't ask me. So all I'm saying is, this is the scenario that you've got with this one, so it's irreverence. Is that close?
Yes.
All right? I don't know where that's.
Lack of
Is that
respect.
really true? Is that, I messed it up?
Yeah, that's right.
It's
It
right.
says lack, it's an ENCE here.
It's an EN?
Yeah.
But that's why we like it,
But
because
it's
it's
really
really
close.
Really close. Like the spelling we had in 6th grade, yeah.
Bobby, it says lack of respect for people or things that are generally taken seriously.
Okay, there you go. All right, now that's pretty common anymore. This is one of the rifts in the church for a while, is the people that went from wearing your Sunday finest to church to looking like you just stepped in off the beach. And it was a wrestling match. Honest to goodness, I remember the first time somebody wore slacks to church. They almost shut down the church. This was just a little church, but they did it out of, just felt comfortable doing it, and it was a wrestling match. Well, the thing about it is it's the trend. It seems to be the way that everything's trending is not up, but down.
My
All right?
son calls it a slippery slope.
Yes, yeah, who wrote the book? Forbes?
I don't know.
Bork?
I don't read it.
Descending to Gomorrah?
Yeah.
Or something like that. It was a book that the judge wrote, and that's what he's talking about. And the thing of it is most people, you get so comfortable with it, you don't pay any attention. I used to wear a suit coat. I mean, that was a given. Matter of fact, when I graduated from the first teaching class that this church had in '75, they told you how to dress. Okay? Suit, tie, good shoes, comb your hair. The beard thing was a little iffy there for a while, but they went with that. I was allowed to have this.
You just said wrong.
Okay?
Got 97.
But the thing about it is I've watched it slide to where flip-flops and all of that. So I have got to be, in my mind, not judgmental of that. The Lord will take care of that. Where do I get my black robe out? Well, the thing of it is with all of this is when you're already of that mindset, it's not hard for you to take the next step. If you don't care about standards, if you don't care about tradition, then you're gonna, that's the way it's gonna go.
Well, what did the folks from yesterday wear? Did they have Sunday best?
No, I would
Did
imagine,
Peter have a coat and tie that he put on?
I would think not. I would think not. But the thing of it is I'm sure they wore the best they could,
Yeah, that's the mindset.
I think, I would imagine. I may be wrong. But I do know one thing, they did at least come in and with their feet, they washed their feet. Why? Because they didn't want earthly dust in a sacred place, earthly dirt, when they had their sandals on. They didn't have closed shoes. So I don't know. All I'm saying is, I don't want to be judgmental in that category. I can dress whatever way I'm comfortable with. All right? You realize when we cut all the doors for the school, I came to work in shorts, and Dolores Bell almost had a hissy fit. She said, "That's not how you dress for work." I said, "It is in my world." I said, "What do you want, a skirt?" Well, she got mad. But then we sat down, and I said, "Look, this is work clothes." So all I'm saying is, you don't have to be grumpy about it, but you have to understand, we're sliding a certain way. I don't know why. I'm not saying somebody that doesn't have anything, but how do I want to present whatever I have to the Lord? I want to be, I would like to think that I present something, not that it changes his mind, but it does point to a respect of where I'm going, of what I'm entertaining, of what I'm getting into. Just like talking in church. You didn't used to talk in church.
It's quiet.
You could hear a pin drop in an auditorium when I grew up.
Yeah, there was no clapping here.
Well, right, and not that it's bad, I'm
No,
not saying
but I
that,
mean,
but
yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm watching it over a period of time, I've watched where it's gone.
Yeah.
And some of it's okay, some of it's not.
Yeah, because some of it can be legalistic.
No coffee or anything.
Right?
And
in the,
Right. But I'm just saying, so what I'm saying is just be careful because it's a slippery slope.
yeah, Bobby, I heard a statement that said that what one generation does in moderation, the next generation will exceed.
Well, okay. And I mean, obviously, it seems to be working fine.
In
Yeah.
all avenues.
I mean, so, at any rate, it's here, I'll just read this. Rebelling against God, open and active sinning in defiance of God and His judgment indicates an active and positive withholding from God the worship due Him. That's how it's laid out. You're just being rebellious so you don't want to do it, is basically how it's working. Matter of choice does not refer to one's state, disposition, imputed sin, or condemnation. A deliberate withholding from God of His dues of prayer and service and standing in battle array against Him. Used to describe an unsaved man. Once justified by faith, an individual can no longer be considered ungodly. So it's the step between those two. And most of the time, if you've ever invited anybody that doesn't know the Lord at all, or has a cursory knowledge of Him, to talk to you about it, it is a very interesting conversation. Bob the Bee Man was a dope-growing, dope-smoking farmer and had no time for the Lord because he thought it would interrupt his business. But the problem was, he became friends with me, which messed up his business plan. Because I wouldn't condemn what he was doing. He said, well, you know this is wrong, don't you? I said, I'm not the one that determines that. I said, I just want to buy a gallon of honey. I don't care how if you got dope smoking bees, I don't care. And he would laugh. Well, yeah, but I mean, but the thing of it is you break down the barriers, and by the time 5 years, 10 years go by, the man that I knew when I first, he yelled at me for driving down his driveway too fast. He doesn't realize I don't go slow anywhere, but he did tell me that, and then he explained to me why. Because the dust gets kicked up and settles on the flowers, and it messes up the pollination, and the bees pick up dirty pollen. I said, well, why don't you put a flipping sign down there to that effect? Us dummies don't know that. But then I drove respectfully down his road. Well, little things like that made a difference to him as to what I would say after that. And when Josh shot up one of his beehives, okay, now, honest to goodness. Now listen, Bob didn't have new stuff. Has anybody ever seen the show on Popcorn, Sutton? The guy that originated moonshine in Virginia?
No. Wasn't that just on Netflix the other night?
Yeah, what channel was that?
It was on, I think it was on Channel 24 one time. It was a documentary. At any rate, he was the one that was a boot, but at any rate, he was a spitting image of Bob the Bee Man. Scraggly gray beard, hunched over, thinner than a whisker, and had a really coarse way. He shot himself instead of going to jail. They were going to put him in jail for moonshine. And after 3 or 4 times of being in jail, he said, I'm not doing it anymore, and killed himself. But this is what Bob was like. This is his mentality. And as you do these things, he was nasty to start with. But Josh shot up his beehive. 2 or 3 kids were out there, found these old beehives, just said, oh, let's practice with our shotguns, and blew the living slop out of one of them. We didn't know that they were active until after they shot it and they had to run. Okay? But the other kids that were with them ran off. Josh came home and told me, and Bob saw what had happened and tracked him down. Well, when he came back, Bob was just, I mean, he was madder than a wet hen. Well, the problem was, I didn't know what was going on, so I said, what happened, Bob? And he said, well, they shot up one of my hives with a couple of adjectives. And I said, well, what's the deal? How much does a hive cost? Well, I don't know, $100. So I went to the truck, got $100, and gave it to him. That was the end of the conversation. He didn't know what to say. He just left. Then the next time he went by, he stopped and dropped off a bottle of honey. And I said, I want you to meet Josh. because Josh wasn't there at the time. And I said, Josh, this is the man's beehives you shot at. Josh said, I'm very sorry, I didn't, with all their diplomacy, I didn't know that piece of junk was actually working. And Bob said, well, it did look a little rough. Okay, so that's how the conversation went. Well, from that point on, a dialogue was set up with somebody that was definitely didn't want anything to do with God. But the Lord had introduced himself to him through a very destructive act. Okay? This is what I'm talking about as far as this. You're the catalyst.
Yeah, it's a destructive act, right there.
Exactly. You're the catalyst. Okay? For so many instances where you can lead somebody to the Lord instead of away from the Lord. And it needs to be activated by you. You have to recognize it. That's the tough part. I mean, what would the other three kids, the other 2 or 3, their parents said, oh, don't worry about it, it's no big deal, type of thing. But that's not how it was. And from that point on, he was a friend, but he was a friend in transition. Okay?
Now, see, it's interesting. They were more irreverent for that.
Exactly. Very, very much so. Very much. So, at any rate, it was just, the scenarios that the Lord lays out in your life are definitely with that troubled waters program, yes. Then the next part of this one goes, it's the noun portion of it, which is ungodliness. Use the attitude of the unbelieving world, which rejects God. Properly, the lack of respect, showing itself bold irreverence and refusing to give honor to where honor is due. That's the definition that you picked up. Then the next one went from ungodliness just to ungodly. Now, how's that one go, Scott? Asibes? Asibes. Must be a thingamajigger there that I missed. Oh, the A at the beginning and then the E. The ETA, is that the, okay, gotcha. Are you going to start teaching that stuff in here? No, okay. Okay, all right. This happens to be the adjective, all right? And it's a positive and deliberate disregard for God, proper lack of reverence, without due respect, and failing to honor what is sacred, especially in the outward ceremonial sense. This is the one that everybody stumbles over. This is when you see somebody that doesn't meet the standards you think should be there, but go to God's standards. What does he want? He wants a receiving heart, not a fancy set of clothes. Okay? Now, I was taught differently. You bring the nice heart in nice clothes. It's not necessary. It really isn't. So I understand the principles behind it, but you don't want to step into this neighborhood either.
I understand that, you want somebody in church. You really don't care what they're wearing. But at the same time, if we're not careful, we use that as part of that slippery slope. Oh, well, we can do this, now we can do that. And you're forgetting maybe why we have those traditions, why you have that sense of, okay, I don't have great clothes, but I'm wearing the best that I got. To where, oh, okay, well then I can wear that too.
Yep.
I would draw the line at deodorant. Better wear your deodorant.
Yeah, that would be a good one to start the list with. There's no say, come to a respect for Jesus. There you go.
I used to use it as an excuse to dress up, and I used to wear a tie every Sunday. So I started looking weird. And I could count the people on one hand that were wearing ties very soon over there.
Oh, yeah.
Same here.
Sure. Yeah. But the thing of it is I've talked to a lot of older folks. You know what they say? More than anything, we are really glad to see a tie. Why? Because it's part of their world. And it's comfortable for them to see something that is reflective in them. And that's what you're going to have. Unsaved person, you can come to church any way you ever love and desire without your deodorant. Okay? Once. Then you should, if this happens, this is what's going to happen. What respect do I have for Christ now? I don't even want to, I cringe at the times I disappoint him. Even though it makes no difference. I mean, it doesn't change his attitude towards me, but it does change my attitude towards him, which is a constant battle. And that's what they're talking about here. And these people go, you can see the slope that you're sliding down. Go ahead.
I'm thinking, I always think about this thing, because what's going to happen when our generation passes? Today, there's no thank yous. Most people, you're the one who says the thank you. And as far as clothing, we went to a funeral just recently, and Len was the only man with a tie in the whole place. It's not that they're, I don't think they're trying it, it's just that they don't know. It's a failure from one generation to another.
You read that? It says the fourth turning.
Yeah.
It's a book. All right? I'm sorry. I messed up. I had a little T and then I went to a big T. Okay, sorry about that. Forgive me. Fourth Turning. It's a book written about 10, 12 years ago. And you need to understand something. One thing that the Lord did do is have a cyclic outlook on things. How many seasons are there? 4. How do you know one of them has changed? Yeah, the weather. Okay. No, you have a calendar, am I correct? She gets all excited with the autumnal one or the winter one at equinox.
Oh, well, I get excited when the winter solstice
See.
comes, because it's all uphill.
Yeah.
And then I get bummed out now that all the days are getting shorter.
So what I'm saying is there are breaks. You know that the break is coming. Calendar-wise, then it shows up. Calendar-wise, then it shows up. These guys have gone through history and looked at all these things. There's an 80 to 120 year cycle of our history, which continues to go through all the time. The only breaks of it, well, number one, the biggest break was the Civil War. It killed a lot of the people that would have been catalysts for the next change. Okay? World War II was another hiccup in the cycle. Well, what you've got is, got a group here, got a group here, got a group here, and a group here. This was the 60s when they were destroying everything. They were destroying all the tenants, all the mores, all of this, all of that. Then it got to this group down here. This has been destroyed. This is kind of living it out, but it's also starting to bear fruit, and the fruit is not pretty.
Disco.
Okay. All right, we can throw disco in there if you want. Okay? And then you've got the next one. They're getting to where this is not panning out like they thought and it's becoming a problem. Then you've got this group. This is the dissident group.
That's the 80s, that's the really off the charts stuff.
Well, you can plug things in all through history that way. But the dissident group notices there's a problem. They're really just mad about the fact that these two guys screwed everything up, and they don't really know what to do about it. Then there's a crossover. When the crossover comes, this group is where you're at that want to go back to something sound. Okay? And when they go back to something sound, they find a scenario that is comfortable with them, whatever it is, and that is coming into fruition now. You see people, your dissident group are the ones that have come out for socialism in America. That type of stuff. Now what you got is, this group has noticed that, noticed the damages of it, can look at the history behind it and see that there's a problem with it, and they're starting to get away from it. They're starting to shun it. They're starting to put a light on it. So all you've done is made the cycle, and these cycles continue. When this group will be comfortable for a while, they will have sway, you'll have a good bunch of years, and then it'll break and you'll start to tear it down again. It's just a cycle. And it happens continuously. okay? But if you want to read the book, it'll give you all the examples of it, and that rascal must be that thick.
But it's a good book.
But it is a very good book. I mean, just for history references. It gives you a, theme says you should look at the world in terms of disasters along the way. How disasters change. Just like Haiti was a disaster. But there was, God knows the purpose of the disaster. Maybe it took some of them out of something that they would have had to endure if they stayed around. The criminal element was shown up more. People noticed more things. But I'm just saying, this is pretty much what you've got going. All right? So, as you study and as you learn, you've got references for all that. Did you find it in your Google thing? Uh-huh. A couple of guys wrote the book. It's just an interesting book.
Oh, who wrote it?
It is Howe and Strauss.
Howe, H-O-W-E?
Yep.
H-O-W-E and
Strauss.
D-R-A-U-S-S?
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
There you go. All right.
The dressing thing.
It'll give you some light reading in the morning when you're drinking your coffee, okay?
Yeah, Dr. McGee talked about that.
It's
Did he?
Yeah,
It's still a
Dr.
matter
McGee.
of when teaching people why you want to respect the church or the service that you're doing. I can still remember back when I was much younger, and it was so bad, people, I don't want to judge, okay? But the whole dressing up thing, it got to a point to where some people weren't dressing up for the right reason, they were dressing up.
Correct.
And so when somebody would walk into the church,
Correct.
and I remember this distinctly, walked into a church who wasn't dressed appropriately, they were immediately escorted out.
Correct.
And that was not a good thing. Since then, you know, it's sort of like when you go to a dinner, right, and you're supposed to wear a coat and tie. Well, that's when you know, there's ways to explain to somebody why you do that rather than toss them out on their ear. So I saw that happen one time at our church.
Right.
You know, it was like
Right.
20,
I
30
understand.
years, 30 years.
And like I said, man's gonna dink everything up.
And then
when it
the
gets
other
old.
thing is, it's the approachability.
Correct.
So when
And-
you're
and
trying to witness somebody, if they don't feel comfortable because they're poor,
Correct.
then
Correct.
you can't even talk to them because they think you've got, not disrespecting you and your tie. Of course, you know, but they see you in the other thing.
Correct.
So when you take the tie off, you're more open.
Yes, correct.
So, but anyway, that's,
Well,
I just go
and I
back to
understand that.
30 years ago when I
But-
saw somebody tossed out of our church.
Correct. I understand. You
I
remember,
had
when-
my own
we used to have a class at the top of the steps right over here.
Right.
And there was a gentleman came in for 3 or 4 weeks that was obviously lived on the street, came in for coffee and donuts.
So you-
And I opened it up to him and I said, "You're welcome to it." Well, they tried to chew me out for that. You know how that went?
And you say, no, well, here's some
Not well
clothes,
for them.
here's some clothes, here's some money. Next week, you
Right.
can,
Correct.
you know.
So all I'm just saying is, look, it's obvious you can, that there's scenarios that play out, but all I'm saying is be aware of it. Don't stick your head in the sand about it, but just pay attention to what's going on. And I'm sorry, I'm here to minister. I don't care what you look like. Just because you wear a shirt that looks like you stepped out of Hawaii
Hey.
and Don Ho is singing at Christmas, you know, or have a fancy tie on. That's right. Then we're gonna change, we're gonna change things for anything. You're still a functioning entity for Christ, and you need to work that way. Go ahead.
Well, speaking of good books, I noticed all of these, the noun, the adverb, and the adjective, they all are in Jude, which is like 3 pages. Jude is like 3 pages, and all of them are in there.
Yes.
And it talks about, we change the grace of our God into a license for immortality. They assume that salvation by grace gives them the right to sin without restraint.
Okay.
We're gonna have to set aside a couple of years and do Jude.
We can do it. We can make it the longest study yet.
It's only one chapter.
We won't do it verse by
One
verse.
chapter,
We'll do
and
it
it's
apostrophe by apostrophe.
Now-
Verse by verse.
These are hardcore people, I think. But,
So on your picture up there, just what I get out of not reading the book, but looking at this
Yes,
stuff,
sir.
it's 20-year segments. So it's the
okay,
60s,
yeah, that's what I said,
70s.
usually 80.
60s, 80s.
Yeah,
It's, so
So
disco
20,
is still in the downturn.
20.
That's all I want to bring up.
Very important to know.
20. All right, and it said that the elongation of it is due to world catastrophes of some kind will stretch the cycle out. I mean, I read the book a couple of times. It's just interesting because of why, you and I look at the news one way, but some people look at news differently. You know, you look at it and say, you go, oh, Lord, where are we headed? But there are people that look at it and say, oh, we're headed here. We're headed here. We're headed here. I mean, I was just watching the news, a little bit, bits and snippets about him not bombing Iran, okay? But we don't have all the information. And if what they said is true, even the people that run the country were ticked off at the guy that shot the rocket, the drone down. And then when, but the world covers it in all aspects. He's a dove now because he didn't do anything. If he'd have done something, he'd been a hawk and a butcher and a killer. So, you know, all I'm saying is I pray for the man, regardless of what's going on. And I understand that the Lord has got a plan for the world, and I'm not privy to it. You know? I have enough wrestling match getting through every day, let alone what the world's doing. So that's kind of the way that's laid out. Now, then for number 7, we go to anomia. That is going to be here, lawless. This is about as far, how far from trespass is this, Scott?
Well,
Is that a weird question?
Go ahead, tell them it's weird.
Well, the man of law, they call it, the man of lawlessness. That's
Okay.
what it comes, so it's lawless, it's chaotic.
Okay, all right.
It's,
well,
But I'm saying, here we are with trespass, which is where we started out, okay? And that one is somebody that is aware of a problem, doesn't respond correctly to it. Is that close enough?
Well, from my understanding, he has the potential of responding correctly.
Okay, potential, okay? That's all right. I-N-T-I-A-L, okay. Should be enough letters there to say potential, okay. Then this,
So that trespass precedes lawlessness.
yes. So this one shows up, this can be a precursor of this in an unsaved individual. And can we have a saved individual be lawless?
Sure.
Yeah, you can.
Free will.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want you to understand. But the thing of this is when you're acting this way, you're acting this way. But you are not. Okay? So the thing of it is everybody wants to make this the bad guy and that one's okay. Well, the potential for you to be this way is always there. Every time you respond incorrectly, you've taken a step away from where you're supposed to be over here in Christ, and you've made a step closer to one of these categories that you've studied over the past couple of weeks. That's something you don't want to do. Okay? And if you do it, you want to be aware of it, and you want to get away from it as quick as you can. So, but with this particular one, oh Lord, I want to scuff up the good classes.
That's
right, I'm
giving you the law.
Now, this one right here is from the word nomos, which means law, and which is something without it, so there's no law involved. Everything prior to the Ten Commandments was no law. But there was still bad stuff going on, just so you know that. All right? Lawless. In spite of and contrary to the law. No one can be lawless, one can be lawless in 3 ways. Without the law, in that no law was imposed, okay? You can do this in a setting nowadays. How is that possible today? To have no law anywhere?
you're on a boat out in the ocean or something?
Well, I'm just saying, that's just a question I'm asking. And we know it's possible because the thing of it is most places that are in a condition of anarchy, there's no law. Venezuela is in a condition of anarchy right now.
there's law, they're just not imposing. They're just not enforcing
Right,
them.
it's just not functioning. Nobody's, and they're doing it now. The moment I hear somebody say, well, these police officers aren't going to help ICE get rid of the people that they're supposed to pick up, I would go pick up those people and put them in jail first and say, okay, we'll bring the other guys to visit you.
Yeah,
I mean, somewhere this is gonna happen.
yeah.
It's gotta happen, or you have no law, all right? Which is what they're talking about with this first one. Now, without law in the sense of that the knowledge of it is withheld, all right? You're ignorant of the law. Number 3, a violator of the law, that is one who lives as if there were no law, okay? Genghis Khan, Bonnie and Clyde. Think of anybody along those lines. Somebody that just totally just says it's not for me. Any idiot that doesn't have a handicap parking sticker and parks in a handicap space. Okay, same difference. That's what those individuals are saying. It doesn't apply to me. All right? So, at any rate, there's always use one of the, in a condition of the deed, or the deed of, that is contrary to law. In other words, you're always out of step with the law. Concept of sin is a violation of the moral government of God. The law for different people, times, is not the same. All people don't have the same obligations. What are we talking about? Laws change. Things happen. You may be outside the law now. You may not be later on. Used to be if I had dope in my car, I would get arrested for dope. Now you go to certain states, you get patted on the back and say, don't worry about it, just don't smoke behind the wheel. Yeah, right. Okay? All I'm saying is you can see where there can be problems. So, at any rate. Now, the last, we got another lawless here. And this one is, I guess, is it a definition as a noun? Is it telling you what the word is? I mean, how is it laid out? I put in here, this sin marks off a child of Satan from a child of God. If you're into this category, there's a pretty good idea that you don't have Jesus at all. All right? Now, why is that? Tell me why. Now, I've been taught since the beginning of time that if I'm indwelled by the Holy Spirit, I cannot be indwelled by a demon, and I cannot be indwelled by Satan. Anything to the difference? Have you read a different verse anywhere else that you can think of?
No.
So me belonging to Christ eliminates part of this tenure. You got a wrinkle in your forehead.
I do, because anybody can break the law, whether you're
Anybody can break the law.
believer or an unbeliever.
But
So
breaking the law this way, according to this, is starting to mark you off as not knowing Christ. Is there anybody you could think of in the Bible that it was related to that says this person was indwelled by Christ and this person was indwelled by Satan?
Well, I'm confused as to why that's part of this. I'm confused as to why the indwelling is part
It's
of
just
this.
saying that the transgression of this one says is a violation of law, description being whole, not particular, and kind of missing the mark. It said this one here is without law or anomia, no law from the period of Adam to Moses. All it amounts to is it's the beginning markings of an individual that is not part of God. I would assume, from what I've gathered out of the rest of these definitions. That's what I'm saying. Not that it may be different by the time we're done. It may not be true at all. It may not be marking somebody off for Satan. But just tell me what, that's what I'm here for. Let me know where we're at as far as this. The other one I said, the persistent contempt of divine law and enjoying it. That's a definition for that particular thing. And I got these definitions from Schaeffer, L.S. Schaeffer. So I'm just saying there's different scenarios that are laid out here. All right? This is always, when it talks about always a reference, or always refers to a positive transgression of the law. Now what is that?
You broke the law.
You broke the law.
Definitely
Definitely
broke
broke the law. All right? Description being of the whole, not particular kind of missing the mark. This is every part of you is breaking the law, not just your mind, not just your action, but from what this says, it's every part of it. The whole is doing it. Is that what I'm reading?
Character, in 1 John 3:4, describes the character of hamartia or sin, violation of law.
Okay.
Character.
Your character. You're a rotten, stinking individual. Is that?
So I don't think it excludes believers, but perhaps if the believer does it, they're carnal.
Well, they're
for
carnal.
a long period of time. But I don't think you can say it's only unbelievers or
I'm just saying, I'm just going by what it says
Let's be
here.
honest, we all know some pretty rotten Christians.
If you have rotten character, go ahead, no, say it loud.
I said, I mean, let's be honest, we all.
There's some Christians that are rotten.
Pretty rotten, and
Yeah,
yes,
right.
they are.
Exactly.
They're just nasty.
Okay.
You've taught me they're left here to be our heavenly sandpaper.
Right.
That works out to Kingston us and they're
Okay,
just
that
hanging
makes
out.
sense, that's why I'm asking, that's what all this stuff is talking about. And what he's talking about is the character, all right? Now, and then in Romans 5:13-14, which we'll get to, probably not this next week, but the week after, there could be a hamartia and an adakia without the law, but not anomia. Now, what is it talking about, Scott? It's talking about sin and unrighteousness, right?
Yeah.
Sin and unrighteousness, but not lawless.
You can't break the law if there is no law.
Correct, all right?
So this
that's
particular
why
one
you
only
and I,
applies if there's a law.
right, and that should not apply anymore.
But again, and the same with transgression, it only works if there's a law.
Okay, all right. Sin was not imputed or is not imputed when there is no law. This is talking about back in Adam's day on up to that, to the giving of the law. First, the fact that the law of Moses was not retroactive, did not apply before it was given. Peter 2 and Peter 2:5, Peter 2, per 2 Peter 2:5, 3, 6, and 7. The flood came as a result of sin. There was no sin during the period, even though there was no Mosaic law. There was sin, even though there was no law. So I don't know what he did with those people.
I think, it's saying there was sin, it just wasn't this word for sin.
Right.
It was another word for sin.
Mark. Sin.
I mean, the verses that Eva was talking about in Jude, like all those ones that are talking about,
Uh-huh.
there was people in the flood, now it's flood, in the water, out of the water.
Right.
That was all ungodliness.
Right.
So that's a type of sin, so therefore they sinned. Those verses all, a lot of them pull in from the all around the flood and pre-law and everything like that. So that word applies to them.
Right.
And, or,
All right.
later ones too, but.
So basically, the art's focusing on sin, and the guys inside the boat are righteous in God's eyes because of a belief system that wasn't laid out anywhere. They got it, and as they got it, but they still had the sin nature was still present in them. All right? That's what you got as far as lawless stuff goes. As far as sin is always out there. He rose above that on the water, killed everything else off, and then we started again. And it was just a perpetuation of what had been on the other side. We just haven't got that bad yet. I don't know how bad is, but bad's bad enough for him to kill everybody. Go ahead.
These verses, these different words are just saying, some apply throughout all of history.
Correct.
Some only apply here, some only
Correct.
apply here.
Very
Some
much so.
are in a couple, but not
Right.
in all of them.
Well, that's just like when she's reading Jude. What's Jude about?
The fall of man, it's,
Right. And it's a short book because it gives you the outcome of your fallen situation over and over and over and over again. And it does that so that you wake up, so to speak, and see what you can lead to if you don't do what he tells you to do in the previous bunch of books. All right? I mean, I can't imagine somebody reading Jude in an unsaved state realizing there's a place for a bunch of people that's going to be hotter than blisters. And it's made specifically for them to be in. And you're going to be with them if you don't straighten up your act. It's beyond me how you can miss that. But that's what that book is telling you, again and again. All right? So, at any rate. So, with all of that, we're stepping down one more to lawless, which is the adjective sense of it. And it's being without the law of Moses or the law. It's just somebody just totally disregarding anything that's on the books is basically what it amounts to. The last one, it says here, with as far as lawlessly, as the adverb, is used exclusively the idea of being without the law of Moses. And there's a lot of people in the old times that were without the law, and they acted certain ways. They acted morally in certain ways. I think the thing that gets me is people think that just because you're lawless that everything stops. It doesn't. How many of you know, how many of you think of crooked things all day long? Anybody do that?
I don't
think they would tell you that.
It's on tape, we probably don't.
I might now, but it's better.
Well, the reason I say that is because, you know, you think of all these, like, people that designed the skimmer for machines for your gas station. Who thinks like that? I don't think like that. How do you, that's a mindset that's beyond what I can comprehend.
What is that?
The skimmers on the gas?
You know, the little card they slip in, they slip a little card in and it reads your card in the skimmer, and then it pulls your information off, and they're sitting over there in their little beat up Toyota collecting information and picking up your money and, you know,
Money, that's what they're doing.
making money hand over fist off of your cards and stuff. Well, the thing of it is, and the Fort Lauderdale's just paid $600,000 to get their information from somebody that threw a malware in there and captured their information and sold it back to them. A little city somewhere. Well, the thing of it is
So ransomware.
yeah, it's exponentially getting spread, but you and I don't think that way. I don't,
It actually started with 9/11. How did they think about taking an airplane and using it as a weapon? How do you even think of that?
I don't know.
How do you even
Yeah.
think of that?
It's interesting because, you know, like for auditing, when you audit, you
Yes.
don't think of all the good stuff. You have to go and think, they teach you to think, what could go wrong? What are the things that they're doing that are incorrect?
Okay.
And like with your trying to find the skimmers or find all the different people that are doing things wrong, you have to train your mind to think like a criminal or something. Which is not, I mean, it's not ideal, but at the same time,
Right.
if you don't know about it.
but you have to
can't
think about
find
the,
it.
yeah, the other side of
And
every
even with
coin.
Bible stuff, like you can know that side, you
Right.
don't even know what to look for to
Well,
combat it.
With their rockets, they think of shooting the rocket, but then they think of what can go wrong, what could go wrong, what could go wrong, what could go wrong, what could go
You have
wrong.
to try to
Right down the line.
That's where I think the needle changes, is when you're designing software or rocks, whatever, you're trying to what can go wrong, how can I mitigate it? Where the needle changes is how can I make this go wrong for my benefit,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah,
So,
that is,
with
that is pretty
9/11,
screwed
with
up.
that, you know, how can I inflict terror? Well, this is a way to do it.
Right.
How can I get money from that person? I use a skimmer.
Well, you know, I think the biggest one that concerns me with all of that kind of thinking is when they tell me that the power grid is open to attacks to shut the power. I don't think people realize how much they depend on their phones
Right.
and all of their stuff for information that can be fixed. I like to watch Mark Levin at 10 o'clock with the intelligent people that he has on there every now and again to talk. And there was a gentleman that talked about that and how you could insulate each of these power stations and power grids so that they could never get to them. And that they won't put a little bit of money into it until something drastic happens.
Die Hard.
Yes,
Die Hard, the last. Die
yes,
Hard
that was
is the fire sale.
exactly.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is, with what's going on, I see evil and its outcroppings, I see sin in its outcroppings, and I don't have the mind to be looking for it all the time, and I need to look for it more probably. But
Not to become like it, but to insulate yourself and to protect yourself.
Right,
and to grow,
exactly. I
so that
mean-
you're not influenced by
right,
it.
I know Home Depot wanted me to have a debit card for Home Depot. I don't even know what a debit card is, okay? I have no clue. But I said, no, I'm not interested. And every time I went in, the bank does the same thing. You know, you have your debit card? I said, driver's license okay? And they say, yeah. I said, when it's not, I'll start doing something else. But the debit card system at Home Depot was what was hacked.
And Target too.
And millions and millions and millions and millions of stuff out there that people got, well, they didn't steal mine. Why? I don't have one. So all I'm saying is, I'm becoming more, I want to become more insulated from what the world's doing because I really don't like where it's going.
Isn't there, and I cannot remember the verse, but isn't there one that says, you know, you must be like sheep, but be wise like wolves or foxes or something like that? You know, so to protect yourself.
Well, and all I'm saying is, I'm starting to have that mindset more than I think the world has taken your pleasantries away. You can't just enjoy it anymore. You always have to be looking, for bad, for nasty, for somebody trying to compromise stuff. I just saw they changed the standards for Bright Futures. I've known for years that they've been giving people Bs and stuff and getting people into the Bright Futures program that shouldn't be in the Bright Futures program, which took away from people that should be in the Bright Futures program. Well, now they bumped the numbers up, and that may change a little bit, but it's just, all I'm saying is man's always gonna find some way to try to work the system when something was intended for good, which every one of my kids went to school on Bright Futures. But I watched it become offer less because they had to. They were expanding it out so much.
Yeah, I
So-
found it. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves.
Go snakes. Yeah, and the thing of it is why? What are we doing? What is he telling you right there? He sent me out into that, so he knows I'm going to be in it, so he's going to make provisions for me to be in it. That's my thing. I want to know the provisions. I want to know how, and I'm not uncomfortable telling somebody, if you don't take cash, I'll go somewhere else. And they said, well, that's fine. Because I know what I've got. I know what I have in my hand. I know what I'm giving you. And it becomes a problem when you think about more and more and more people out here in one of these programs, and more people are using world standards, and I don't fit the world standards anymore. Could be a problem. So, all right, flip a page. Now it's getting down to the last few guys. What time is it? Okay. And this one, oh boy. Noego?
What number are we on?
8.
8, Agnoeto.
Oh, boy, that was really messed up. Okay. Error. No, this is knowledge. Has to do with knowledge to come to know, recognize, understand, discriminating knowledge of external impressions and knowledge grounded in personal experience. Means your lack of knowledge. How many of you have a lack of knowledge? Everybody does. In different categories, right? All right. Now, how do you know which ones you need to beef up on?
Ones you need.
What do you know? How do you know you need it?
If you don't have it, then you want it.
Okay. Number one, you're going to have a want.
You have to ask the Lord to show you.
Ask the Lord. There you go.
And if you don't know something, you don't know that you don't know.
Yeah.
So he has to tell you. Yeah.
How do you know you don't need it when you don't want it if you don't?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it's one of the catch-22 deals. But the thing of it is, I'm going into the world. What did he just say in that verse? Be wise, but he said, I send you, okay? And what did he tell us again and again? I sent you out there, but I didn't send you unprepared. Okay? It's there. So if there's something you're going to get into, how many of you have hung around the drug world at all? Is that a weird question? Okay, yeah, you were in Hollywood, okay? You guys do it because of the people that you get in and out.
No, he's a
okay?
crackhead.
I was trying to be nice, okay? But the thing of it is I didn't realize the ramifications of it until I had to help somebody that was in that mess. And as you learn those things, you learn the different aspects of it, you see what's going on, and you approach things differently to where you can see characteristic changes in somebody when that has entered their life. Just because of observation, not because I've studied it, but because of observation. Same thing about the world. I'm observing the world and watching it change in front of me. From when I was 10 years old collecting pop cans along the road, pop bottles, for baseball cards to get bubble gum. Okay? Then the next thing you know, they're taking the bottles and they're drilling holes in the side of them and they're snorting and snuffing stuff through them. I mean, so you see what I'm saying? The whole world has changed in front of me, and I don't want to be involved in it. I don't want to be influenced by it, but I do want to recognize it.
So when we interview people for work and the assignments we do and stuff, you start out with just a general list of questions. And as you go through those questions, then you start to find, more, explicit questions to ask them that are pertinent to exactly what they're doing until you drill down until why they're doing what they're doing. So even with learning Bible stuff, you start off with a general question, and the Lord leads you to
Where you
here's
need
where I
to
want
where you
to
need to
and
be.
this is what you need to know.
Correct. Exactly. I mean, that's basically what they're talking about here, okay? And I put for definition, you just don't get it. Some people read it and just don't pay any attention to it. I wrote it in there where it said definition, you just don't get it. Somebody tries to tell you, why do you have to clean up on a job site at the end of every day? Why?
So it's easier tomorrow morning to start.
That was taught to me by every ever-loving carpenter and my dad before I ever picked up a hammer. How do I know? When we finish working on something in Dad's shop, at the end of the day, you put it away, you put it on the designated, traced-out thing on the pegboard so that it was in its home and everything was perfectly in place. The next day when you get started, and I'll tell you something else he always told me. Always leave one thing undone to where you can start right there and get yourself into the framework of what you're doing when you come back the next day. So you don't have to fumble around for 45 minutes trying to figure out where to start. Yeah. You know why that was taught to him? Because Grandpap taught him. He was a farmer. He was an engineer on a train, ran a store. But he had tons of stuff to do, but he was always doing. Okay? And that's what he taught me. He said, Dad told me this. He said, he told me this because he said, I hate to see somebody standing around not doing anything for 20 minutes of the day. That's back in the Depression era. So all I'm saying is, there are things that you can learn from this scenarios and what you're talking about. But if you do scenarios like that, you set yourself up for success. Theme says set yourself up with positive responses so that you're making a decision from a position of authority and a position of knowledge, not fumbling, not messing around, all right? Lack of understanding or ignorance of significance of the facts resulting from ignorance or lack of understanding comes from error or sin resulting from it, springing from ignorance as well as the resulting blindness to spiritual truth combined in a definition to error. In other words, you just don't have the mindset for it. How many of you read a verse many, many times before all of a sudden the light bulb comes on? Why did the light bulb come on?
I didn't have enough knowledge or understanding as the foundation to get me to that next
Yeah, what he
step.
would have gotten out of that verse would have had nowhere to go,
Right.
basically. So that's what he does. Study it, study it, study it. Next thing you know, you put enough pieces together that the puzzle is right there in front of you and you've got it going, all right? Next one, to error as far as being a verb. Error, sin through mistake. Sense of ignorance, ignorance, the fact of ignorance, of truth of facts, all right? Climate change. Big to do now. How many of you have been around long enough to read the Time magazine that we were supposed to go into an ice age here in the 80s?
Yeah, 1972 or 73,
Yeah.
the article came out.
All right, so if you're around long enough, you can tell some of this stuff is just hype. But at the same time, you don't want to be ignorant.
Yeah, we were supposed to have been in the ice age by the 80s, yeah, by
Ah,
1985
yeah,
or something.
I remember
that.
reading it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And believe it or not, one of their things that they were going to do to try to keep that from happening was to spread carbon deposits in the Arctic and Antarctic area.
Yeah, make it darker so.
Yeah, so-
Yeah. At any rate, just so that you realize it's you can be ignorant and have no facts, and you can be ignorant and have facts. So, but the person is ignorant of the truth is a significant Christian faith, not flagrant and willful disobedience of God. This is a learning curve. How many of you like to learn? Anybody in here just like to be stupid? Not really a good option, is it? All right, so as you're learning, what do you learn? How many of you have a plethora of things you like to learn? Or you just categorize one thing? I know you've gone through a whole truckload of putting shoes on horses, gem stuff, cars, boats. I mean, you're always learning. You're always checking something out. What is there about? Why is that good? Why?
It's like you're discovering a new gem. You're in something that you can use as a building
Yes.
block for something else.
Exactly. And what did the Lord tell you to do? I gave you a world. Now what do you do with this world? Tells you right in the front side of Romans, look around this world and you will see me. Okay? I mean, it's phenomenal. And that's what people need to realize. And if you have bad facts, find out the facts. Get the facts.
Go forth and procreate.
Yeah, there you go. That will work. That's what it's all about, all right? So, then you got a noun, as far as ignorance goes. The ignorance is sin itself. Part of the issue is no further sin. It has been an element of choice in it, seen as a mild light in contrast to willing and God-defining sin. In other words, what's it talking about?
I'm sorry, I was just trying to reread that.
Okay,
'Cause
okay.
it's a little wonky.
If you look at what it says, it's ignorance of the sin. You don't even know the categories. Let me tell you something. I'm thoroughly convinced that every denomination makes a list of sins that are good to their denomination, that are not on God's list. Okay? Which is a control factor, which is normal. I mean, that's just the way man is. How many? Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm back up to speed now.
Okay, yes, sir.
It's like when people are in a church and they don't want to go any further in their faith. They
Okay.
just always want to be on baby steps
Correct.
and milk and stuff.
That's
And
it, yeah.
they're not, they're deliberately choosing not to learn more doctrine. They just want to keep learning the same thing over and over and over. And
Yeah. Well, and the thing of it is that's just it's not smart.
no, that's what this is saying. You're choosing to be ignorant.
Yes.
I tell you what's happening with.
Go ahead, I'm
sorry.
what do they always say? Ignorance, yes, there it is. Ignorance is bliss. If I don't know, how can that harm me? I remember somebody saying that on a radio station, you can't get in trouble for the song you don't play. What are they talking about? Anybody ever heard a song, you're sick of it? When was the last time you were in A Small World? There, see, I just put a song in your head that's going to beat you up all day long.
Some of us like that song,
Somebody's like that song.
just saying.
So all I'm saying is that there are ways to go around it. Go ahead.
No, it was just a general observation. I hang out with a lot of millennials because of having young kids. And I've noticed a general lack of natural curiosity. They just don't care. They don't care what's under it, or how to set it on fire, or how to save it, or how to buy it, or how to fix it. They don't care.
Well, part of it is because of that thing you got in your hand all the time.
I'll just Google it.
Yeah.
That's in the workplace too,
Yeah.
because we're told, why don't you make videos to show people what to do, not to let them read, to see
Right.
the foundations
Right.
and what can go wrong and how things are taught, just show them how to do it.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to read. I'm like,
How did you do
get
it?
through college?
Yeah, how did you do it in my day?
Yeah.
Tear it apart.
Well, you had natural curiosity.
Yeah.
You just, what's on the other side? Is
I mean,
it greener?
I was tearing the side off the door yesterday in the car because something's rattling. I didn't Google it, I tore it apart.
And then you deal with the ramifications
Yeah,
later.
exactly.
But
Okay.
if we lose that,
Might be a donut
then
in
the people in charge are more important and necessary, and here we are, they take,
That's
we
great.
follow.
Yeah, well, they want followers, that's for sure. They don't want people that are free thinkers, because
Maybe what you're saying here is, ignorance is sin in itself. It's not the ignorance that's sinful, it's what do you do with it?
with the ignorance. Yeah, you don't want to get out of the ignorant state.
If the Lord wants you to learn something and you're like, no, I'm good where I'm at,
You're right.
that it becomes a
Exactly.
problem, because He may
Sure.
have something to teach you or a purpose for
Well,
you.
he's got,
Something for you to accomplish, but you can't
yeah.
until you learn.
You realize the Lord has the calendar of your life? It's up there on the wall, right there next to the throne. And he's going through it, and he said, oh, we got to get him into this class, because he's got this coming up. And if you miss the class, how many of you have missed something and it's cost you? It can get you in trouble. Well, he's not into doing that. He's into preparing you for stuff, and that's what he's talking about. So this is the ignorant part of unbelief based on skepticism coming nearer to being an attitude in the mind, a philosophy of life. Just as always the rain cloud mentality. Okay, well, you can do that, but, at any rate. Now, then the last one is 9 and 10, you got worse, to be inferior. That's a weird one.
It was.
Hmm?
It was.
Yeah, this is a strange
I had
one.
on the list, and so I put it.
Considering the use of, how did you say those words?
Acebeo, anomia, agnoeo.
Okay. Leads to the conclusion that the words refer to a concept of sin, which sin is described as an inferior path, lesser of two possibilities. Now, the only thing I can attribute to that is, you see this right here? There's the plan that God has for you. This is Bobby, okay? And if I've made a bum decision and never got out of it, I'm down here on a path is not what he intended for me to be on.
I was looking at it differently. I need $1, so the two paths are either go earn it, or I can hold a gun to somebody and get it.
Okay.
So there's your same result.
Right.
Good path, bad path.
Okay, well then that would work too. But you're still on a different path than what he intended for you to. I'm pretty sure that there's not a verse that says if you need $1, go steal it from somebody.
You know, the concept of sin, which is
Right.
sin described as an inferior path.
Right.
The lesser of the two possibilities. So, you know, you have a choice on
Right.
which way you
Always
want to
have a
get
choice.
to
Yeah.
from A to B.
Well, that's pretty much what they're working with. All right? Now, and with all of that type of stuff going on there, it's just talking about, it's a defeatist attitude, really, is what it amounts to. You never, anybody ever been around abused women? Anybody ever interacted with them? I've counseled with them at times, okay? Let me explain something to you. They actually have the mindset that they deserve what they got. That is the most heinous thought process and the most difficult process to break that I have ever come across in my life. I can tell somebody not to marry somebody and they actually listen. But when you try to tell somebody you are not that individual, you are much more important to Christ than allowing somebody to abuse you physically, verbally, or whatever that you need to extract. And there's times when I've told them, look, I'm not telling you to divorce, I'm telling you to get away from them. Go live with a family member, go do something like that. Just eliminate them from your life and see how the dynamics change. And sometimes that works, but sometimes they can't take it and they go right back to it. So what I'm saying as far as this goes is it's a defeatist attitude that kind of feeds this program, all right? And the last one here is what is that, Poneria?
Poneria.
Poneria?
Poneros.
Poneros? Yeah, Poneros. Yeah, they put them extra letters in there and throw me a curve, all right? Poneros is pain, laborious trouble. All right, this is sin. It's utter corruption, wickedness, evil character. Point of choice is not so much the wickedness proceeds from choice or act of the will, but rather the act, whatever is cause, is its cause, is essentially bad in its nature. What are we talking about?
Evil. Evil?
Yeah, just somebody that's just flat out bad seed. Cain is your best example. Cain wasn't mad at Abel for his gift. He was mad at God because God wanted him to meet the same standards as he wanted for Abel.
He took people with him, I mean, down the wrong
Yes.
path. He was
Yeah,
going, let's do
right.
it this way, and people were like, okay.
Correct. As a matter of fact, there's places where he named his son, what did he name his son? God had a name for one of Adam's offspring. Cain had an offspring of the same name, and God specifically says in the Word, it is not the offspring of Cain that we're speaking. Enoch? Might have been Enoch. He said, do not think that it's this one. This one is on this line, this one is on this line. Never confuse the two. This one is evil from the beginning, this one is of me. So there are times when an individual is marked out, and some of the people that are marked out are generally marked out from the beginning. As the son of perdition is revealed, whenever time for that to happen, that individual will be set up specifically to be revealed because he is under no other tutelage than that of Satan. And that individual would be a tough individual.
Another example of people in general would be the Tower of Babel.
Yes.
They would try and take everyone down.
Yes.
Nimrod and all of this stuff.
Nimrod was a good example. He wanted to suck everybody into it.
More than Nimrod.
All right, now,
Good job, Bobby.
thank you. That's all right. It was a roundabout way of getting you an answer. Now,
We're out of time, dear.
I'm trying to stop now.
They have to go back.
Okay, now, the next time we come back, we'll do one more thing, then we'll be back in Romans, and it is, we'll do the James verse. You have that?
1:14.
Yeah, you got that paperwork? Might be two of them there. But I can give it to you when you get back, but at any rate, or when you come back. My thing is, this one here is the one that wrestles with sin in your mind, okay? So, once again, we'll lay it out for you, and you can set your own opinions, but at the same time, it'll give you information to go by. All right, and then that'll be it for the little interlude, and we'll be back beating the doors on Romans again, if that's acceptable, until they chase us off.
What does the word egress mean?
Who?
Egress. To enter?
Exit.
So, to regress is to what?
Redress. Regress.
And to transgress is what? Is that the bounce back and forth?
Yes. Yeah.
But the thing about transgression.
Transgressing is, right.
But does it lead to back and forth?
It can, because once you're over here, and you know you're out of fellowship, what is the intent for a Christian? To step back. What's the intent for the other individual? They haven't got a clue, so they just keep plowing on ahead. A moral individual, on the other hand, in that same scenario, will keep making those steps and get far enough away and say, you know, something's just not working right here. Go back and take another shot at it. And that individual is open to Christ. I'm out of time, I'm sorry. Yes, Mrs. Adams, sorry, I'm out of time. Okay. I put Robert on here, okay? He has been taken home from the hospital by the doctors. They wanted to keep him on machines. He was not interested in that. He is aware of what's going on. So they took him home Saturday. So they're just waiting. Hospice is in. They're waiting for him, for the Lord just to come and get him. That's basically what it is. And he's very much aware of the fact that he's just waiting to see Jesus, which is a nice way to do it. So keep that family, keep the Boring family in your prayers. And I've got Fred and Keith and James and Ken and Brett and Amy and Stanley and Sarge and Mrs. Helton and Trooper Miller. All of these folks are just continually on our hearts. Church services going on, okay? Keep them in your prayers because it's going to be bedlam for a little bit till the new dynamics take over. Megan Dean.
Her PET scan was stable.
So she's just same old, status quo. All right. Len, still wrestling with the shingles. Keep him in your prayers. Any other doctor's appointment scheduled for anything, or
No, doctor, no, but acupuncture, yes.
acupuncture? Yes. Okay. That's what I told him the other day. Look, if you got to make me a pin cushion, do it. Whatever it takes to make you feel better. Because I can't imagine. He said it's like somebody sticking a knife behind his shoulder blade and then twisting it. So keep him in your prayers. Pray that he gets some sleep. Specifically, get some sleep. All right? Just so you know. I also put on there, a gentleman who used to be in this class, Phil Barnes. He had open heart surgery. He comes up to the gas station and I saw that he was kind of tired looking. I said, "You okay?" He didn't say a word. He goes. So I said, "Oh, you remember the Zipper Club?" He said, "Yeah." So anyway, he's doing better. And I told him he wasn't as good as me, because I'm a 4Xer and he's only a 2Xer.
Yeah.
Because he had to go back into me and poke 2 more holes. So But at any rate, just keep him in your prayers, because he's doing better. And he said between the time that the surgery and the time of now, he had to marry off a daughter, so that was a little intense, trying to function in those scenarios. But it's out there all the time. I put Dave's mom and dad on, haven't heard anything new about that. Al's mom on here, Shirley, Barbara Cook, Fredericks' and all that. Audrey, still doing okay?
She had, last week, she had her results back, so she's still cancer free.
Okay, all right.
So she doesn't have to worry again for another year.
Okay, all right.
We're not worried, but you can check.
Okay, there we go. Home to sell, you've showed it to somebody, so maybe that person's got a pile of cash in his back pocket. And then Bill and Ann, we put them on there to get rid of theirs too. And then Barbara traveling, gets back here Tuesday, you said? All right. And, oh yeah, here it is down here below what I put. Cool. Lois, Glenn's ankle. Having circulation problems?
I have a wound on my ankle that just doesn't want to heal.
Really?
It's vascular related, but it's just not getting better.
Wonder what your blood sugar level is like.
Good.
All right. And so we can read that one. Len, oh, this is your, Len is hurting. This is from Marion. And Cindy, Dad, John Millick now feeling well. Pray for him. He's got a little hitch in his giddy up right now, so hopefully that'll improve. And they got doctor's appointment scheduled out for him, or is he just driving your mom nuts? Both. I gotta stop down and look at the side of the house somewhere anyway and measure the neighbor's chimney cap or something, so I'll check on him when I'm down there this week, see what kind of trouble we get into. All right, anything else? All right, let's pray. Thank you, Lord, for today. We thank you for your word. We pray that we can get through it successfully and continue on. And above all, be with those families that are present here today, Lord. Just bless the living daylights out of them as they leave this room, because they care about you tremendously. Watch over the ones that aren't here, Lord. Bring them back to us safely. The ones that may be traveling, and for the ones that may be traveling in the future, just keep tabs on them. And we give it all to you in Christ's name. Amen.